Good to see you all. I didn't see Brother Ben come in. Hopefully he's doing okay today. Uh, but I hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving. Hey man, good to see you. It's uh, it's uh, it's it's a blessing for me and my family because I married somebody from the same town, so we don't have to travel or go to separate places. Her family actually celebrates Thanksgiving the weekend before, so we can go there. And then my mom usually works Thanksgiving, so we usually celebrate it on the weekend. But it was a blessing. We got to see them yesterday. They got to see the kids after about a month because, of course, we stayed away and stuff through all that. But they were excited. Of course, my son just running around, just like freaking out because he got to see them. So he was happy. But it was a blessing. It was a good Thanksgiving. And I appreciated hearing everybody who gave testimony on Wednesday. It was a blessing to hear all those testimonies about what you're thankful for. And we're actually been kind of talking about thankfulness and talking about having that attitude of gratitude, you know. So last week we started lesson 6 here, Moses and the manna. Been talking about the life of Moses. And here it is, we're at this point where they've already uh, left Egypt, they've crossed the Red Sea, and they're in the wilderness now. And we talked about last week how soon they forgot about how good God had been to them. And they were hungry, and they made it pretty clear to Moses, that they were hungry. They were complaining. And that's what we talked about. We talked about the murmur, and we talked about how complaining is a pretty terrible sin. It's pretty bad. God takes it seriously. Yet, we were talking about how God would provide for these needs. God had just delivered them, from their enemies, and did this tremendous thing of parting the Red Sea. And already they were complaining. They'd already forgot that God is able to preserve them. And of course, they were complaining, you should have left us in Egypt to die. Well, it's like, well, why would I bring you out just to let you die of starvation in the wilderness? The Lord had a plan. The Lord was working in these things. And there was definitely no reason to be complaining. But we spent the majority of last week's lesson talking about how leaders are called upon to be problem solvers. And here Moses has this issue. He has millions of people, and we talked about how a little leaven leavened the whole lump, the Bible says. How just maybe one person started complaining, next thing you know, it spread to everybody. And we're talking about the whole congregation, the Bible says. And we're talking about millions of people. And here it is, Moses has this issue of all these people complaining and murmuring against him and the Lord. And now he needs to solve this issue, right? But we talked about how leaders are called upon to be problem solvers. And I challenged each of us by saying that we all are leaders here in some way or another, whether it be in your house. Maybe you're a husband, maybe you're a big brother, maybe you're not a big brother, but maybe you have some people that are looking up to you at work, or maybe it doesn't matter, but we all can be leaders in one way or another. And sometimes, well, most of the time, you are going to have to solve problems. There's going to be problems that come up in the different areas of our life, whether it be in the home or at work or in our own personal lives. We talked about there's going to be plenty of problems that come up in our own personal life. How are we going to solve those problems? How are we going to move forward and not let those problems, and then we talked about how Jesus calls upon us to be peacemakers, not keepers. And I know the husbands in here will probably be able to grab onto that a little better, But Satan will use anything, right? Satan will try to disrupt your life and try to push you off course and try to cause you for your life to be chaos, and no matter what stage of life you're in. But God, Christ, calls on us to be peacemakers. Oftentimes, and I'm just repeating this because I really feel like it was a good point last week. But Christ doesn't say be a peacekeeper. And so often we hear that, like, I just got to keep the peace. I'm just trying to maintain balance, and I'm just trying to stay above water, kind of. I'm just keeping the peace, or I'm trying to make peace, but that's what Christ calls us to do, is make peace, not just keep it, not just maintain, some sort of false peace, but he wants us to be that peacemaker. Hey, I'm going to have to step up and be a leader, and I'm actually going to have to take this thing, by the horns, and I'm going to have to make that peace. Sometimes it's hard, sometimes it's not easy. We really spent the majority of last week on those things. So, taking responsibility, solving these issues that are coming up in our lives by being a leader, and there's always room for more leaders in the church. We have plenty of people that just want to, I guess what the word, like a bystander, or like some people that just want to go along for the ride, like a hitchhiking in church. Let me just show up and then fill my spot, and that's it. But I was challenging everybody last week. Hey, why don't you be a leader? Why don't you? And then each of the men that was here last week, I said, you